All right, what's going on, everyone? Farzin Vasugian here with you on a Tuesday. The NFL trade deadline has passed. The Chiefs stood pat. They did not make a move at the trade deadline, and that has a lot of people reacting. Listen, I don't know if there are protests happening around Kansas City. My guess would be there's at least one protest where you're seeing a lot of Chiefs jerseys and people speaking out on the lack of activity from the Chiefs. The Chiefs did come very close to making a deal with the New York Jets. The Jets had a very busy day, being big time sellers. There was a fire sale at MetLife Stadium, not from the Giants, from the Jets. The Jets were very active today. We'll talk about some of the trades that took place today. One of them does impact the Kansas City Chiefs. As far as a player who they'll see and not too far in the distant future. So we'll get into that later on here. This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That's where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs. Even though the Chiefs are on a bye right now, we still have college football. College basketball is underway. NBA, NHL season, all in full swing here. And if you guys want to catch any of the action, you can go to SeatGeek, get your tickets there. And if you're a new customer, use my promo code Farzin and save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and at checkout, if you're a new customer, use my promo code Farzin and save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. All right. Talk to me, Chiefs Kingdom. I see you guys are coming in here. Is it the end of the world? Is it the end of the dynasty? Look, let me just. Then I thought about, like, how do we start with this discussion here? Because Chiefs fans are not very happy, and I've tried to give an explanation as to what I think was the reason for the lack of activity today. So I'm looking at overthecap.com, and I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs section. Do you know how much money the Chiefs have in there right now? $3,005,970. I hardly ever, when you listen to people in the media, they hardly ever give you the exact dollar amount for the salary cap or how much a player is making. But this is so short, I can just say $3,005,970. That's what the Chiefs have left. And I said this shortly after the trade. Before the trade deadline, what did I tell you? I said, do not expect Alvin Kamara. Do not expect Quinnen Williams. Those guys have big, fat veteran contracts. That was not feasible for Kansas City. And I did say maybe the Chiefs will go after a player who's on a rookie deal, like a couple of running backs, Devon Achane, Breece Hall. I mentioned Calais Campbell, the defensive tackle for the Cardinals, 38 years old, 37 years old, but maybe someone who they could have used on that defensive line, and he's on a fairly cheap deal. I think if you were going to get any of those guys, specifically Campbell, and I said this before, it probably would have had to been on a deal similar with the DeAndre Hopkins trade, where the Chiefs and the Titans agreed to split the remaining salary of Hopkins for what was left last year. So you already know the Chiefs were not going to make a big splash for a tenured veteran, because feasibly, from a salary cap standpoint, that was not happening. That was never going to happen. I warned you guys about this. I thought Veach would have gone after somebody that's on a rookie deal. I mentioned Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, Devon Achane. I thought there was a strong possibility they would have gotten one of those. Now, I mentioned the Jets. They were pretty busy today with their fire sale. They traded Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts. That one shocked everybody. Nobody thought Sauce Gardner was on the move, at least not for this year, because he signed an extension back in July. And we talked about that extension, and we talked about whether or not this will impact Trent McDuffie. But for right now, the Chiefs did not make a move. The Jets were negotiating with the Chiefs. They sent Sauce Gardner to the Colts. They got 2 first-round picks out of that, and they also traded their defensive tackle Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys. I believe the Cowboys got a defensive tackle back in return. I don't remember the name of the guy. One of you guys did mention his name as a player you guys wanted. But the Cowboys, they got Quinnen Williams. The Cowboys also got Logan Wilson from the Bengals. The Ravens got Drummond Jones from the Titans. The Dolphins traded Jalen Phillips to the Eagles. Another significant trade today was the Jaguars. They received Jacoby Myers from the Las Vegas Raiders. I know there was another wide receiver involving, I think, the New Orleans Saints. I think they sent a receiver, but I don't have that in front of me on this list here. There it is. Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks, giving Sam Darnold another weapon, who's quietly having a very good season, by the way. So those were the big trades today. And like I told a lot of you guys, don't expect the Chiefs to make a big splash here. Now, they came very close to adding Breece Hall. The word was, first of all, this came from Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports. Jordan Schultz said that Breece Hall wanted out of New York. And I don't know if you guys are following this. Breece Hall had a series of tweets just putting gifs and trying to insinuate a move was coming. And then once the trade deadline passed, he said that he's happy for his former teammates, but also gutted. He deleted all of those tweets. So that tells you how he feels about everything right now. And the Chiefs came very close to getting Breece Hall. The report from Diana Rossini and several others was that the Jets wanted a 3rd-round pick and that no team was willing to meet that asking price. And to get the right guy, there was a reporter from SNY, based out of the New York City area, Connor Hughes. He said on his live stream on the Jets' final drive that the Chiefs offered a 4th-round pick for Breece Hall. So the Chiefs didn't just sit on their chairs and do absolutely nothing. They were active, somewhat trying to make a move happen. They were negotiating at the very least, so we know that much. The Chiefs were trying to get Breece Hall. The Chiefs were willing to offer a 4th. The Jets wanted a 3rd. And listen, I think the problem with that is the overall thought. And yeah, the Chiefs are 5-4 right now, but I think any NFL general manager out there knows that if you're going to get a draft pick from Kansas City, that draft pick is going to be a very low pick. If you're getting a 3rd-round pick from Kansas City, it's almost going to be like a 4th-round pick because the expectation is Kansas City is going to be very late in terms of the draft order, like they are every year. So the Jets were apparently willing to deal a 3rd, but I guess from Kansas City's perspective, and listen, we don't know the reason why the Chiefs were not willing to give a 3rd. I said on Twitter, I said, give a 4th and a 7th. You guys know Zach. Zach's been on this podcast many times. He and I, we were texting back and forth. He said that they should give back Derek Nottie. I completely forgot about that. But the Chiefs were willing to give a 4th, not a 3rd. Why were the Chiefs not willing to give a 3rd? My thought process is that Breece Hall is on the final year of his rookie deal. Would you want to give up a 3rd to get someone on a rental for 3 months, maybe 3.5 months, depending if good things happen? Probably not. That's not an ideal deal to make for a lot of NFL general managers. And listen, if you had a crystal ball that was giving you 100% accuracy, and that ball told you that you'd win a Super Bowl with Breece Hall, would you be willing to give that 3rd-round pick up for Breece Hall? Probably. But I guess there was some doubt from the Chiefs. I don't know. I'm speculating because I'm seeing a lot of people. I mean, there are probably pitchforks and knives outside of Arrowhead Stadium with Chiefs fans not happy that the Chiefs did not make a move. A lot. Talk to me. How are you guys feeling? I've been skimming through the chat right now, and I'm seeing a lot of the comments here tonight. Joey's asking, do I think Not giving the Jets a third round for Hall would be a mistake. I don't know. You know what? Someone tweeted me about 30 minutes ago. They said that the Chiefs acquired Josh Uche last year and never used him, which is accurate, but every player, every trade, every situation is different. I'm not going to sit here and compare what the Chiefs could have potentially done in terms of load management with Breece Hall versus Josh. Listen, I have no idea why Josh Uche was not utilized for the Chiefs. That was weird. Very, very weird. I think looking back, that certainly was a mistake. I think I'd rather have Joshua Uche over Mike Dana and Charles Omenihu right now for sure. Yeah, a lot of you guys are not very happy. A lot of people are disgruntled. Mozzie Smith, thank you. That's the Cowboys player I was thinking of. Not happy to see us not trade. Third round pick for Hall is a steal. Veach missed. First time I'm actually furious with the Chiefs front office. We should have pulled the trigger for Breece. T-Dub says Breece was right there. Okay, so a lot of Brett Veach detractors for tonight. Yeah, the Uche situation was weird because a lot of people were excited when the Chiefs got Uche. A lot of people said the Chiefs are getting a guy that's got high motor, someone that didn't get a lot of opportunities in New England and could have given the Chiefs defense a nice little boost. And we barely saw Josh Uche, which was weird. And then he went to the reigning champ. So there you go. Trevor says use Kareem Hunt for a short yardage situation and give Rashard Smith more carries. I don't think the Chiefs are going that route, though. I think Pacheco is the guy once he comes back from his injury. And listen, we'll see if he's going to be the same player when he comes back. But I don't know, man. Look, I'll say this. This is the least active Brett Veach has been during a season. Now, we've seen in years past where they got Mike Pennell and Terrell Suggs, Steven Wisniewski right before the end of the regular season. They got Terrell Suggs through the waiver wire. I know statistically he didn't do anything, but things that don't come up on the stat sheet, Terrell Suggs did have some big run stuff that helped Kansas City's defensive line and helped elevate them to get that Super Bowl 54 win. Joey says there was nothing on the board worth trading for. Nothing. Well, I don't agree that there was nothing to trade for, but it always depends on the asking price. Was Brett Veach willing to give a third for Breece Hall? Apparently not. And again, like in an alternate universe, because we can't really get into that hypothetical now, but in an alternate universe, if we find out Brett Veach giving up a third brings in Breece Hall and gives the Chiefs a Super Bowl win, sure, yeah, of course, but I guess the Chiefs didn't feel that confident, because here's the thing you got to keep in mind, Breece Hall was not coming back to Kansas City. Breece Hall, this upcoming offseason, he's going to get a big contract from another team somewhere in the NFL. I don't know where it's going to be, but he's going to get that. Again, Kansas City has $3 million of cap space for 2025. Do you know how much they have next year? And they're not in the net positive. They are in the net negative. They are deep in the negative. They are deep in the hole. In fact, the Chiefs have the worst cap space for 2026. They are almost $43 million over the cap. So Breece Hall was not going to stay in Kansas City for 2026. Breece Hall was going to go get an extension somewhere else. No, I shouldn't say extension. He was going to get a big deal somewhere else. Kansas City is in a salary cap hellhole for next year. You don't want to give up a third for a rental that for a player who could maybe get you to a Super Bowl. Again, I say maybe because it's never a guarantee. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are over the cap. The Chiefs are at almost 43 million. The Vikings are over 36 million. Cowboys at 35 million. I wonder if that includes Quinnen Williams already or not. The Saints at 13 million, Browns at 12 mil, Dolphins at 11 mil, and the Bills at 3 million. Dolphins almost at 12 million. So Kansas City just not in the best position right now to give up something high for a player that they're only going to have for 3, maybe 3.5 months. Yeah, listen, I've said this many times. Jawaan Taylor, this is the final year with Jawaan Taylor. When you consider next year, they have $43 million over the cap that they've got to eliminate. Jawaan Taylor is going to get rid of a big part of that for you. You know who else is going to help out by cutting him? Mike Dana. And right, let me look at that real quickly with the Chiefs. So if we go to 2026, getting out of Brett Veach's contract, where's the calculator on this thing? There it is. If we get rid of Jawaan Taylor right there, and by the way, this is on overthecap.com/calculator. So that's how you can take part in this if you'd like. The Chiefs go from 42 million to 22 million, 22.8 million. So exactly, you eliminate exactly $20 million by getting rid of Jawaan Taylor. You cannot get rid of Chris Jones. He's going to put you over the cap. You're going to have a lot of dead money there. They're not cutting Jalen Moore. That would free up $8 million, but they can't do that because they need him at right tackle. They're going to cut Mike Dana. That's going to free up $9 million. So those two alone will get you from $42.8 million to $13.8 million. I would imagine Christian Fulton, since they're not using him, he's probably not going to stick around much next year. And they might do 1 or 2 more moves. I would not be too surprised if Noah Gray, I mean, it obviously depends on what happens with Travis Kelce, but I would imagine there's going to be some movement there. You're going to have to do something with Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes' deals. Because Patrick Mahomes has a cap hit of $77 million. Because they keep restructuring his deal. Chris Jones is at $64 million. So, not the prettiest of situation. Yeah, if Kelce retires, I mean, listen, we don't know. I know he's gone back and forth many times. By the way, I'll say this right now, because I know McDuffie is on the 5th year. What's the 5th year option? That's what he's under right now for 2026. I heard Matt Derrick on Sports Radio 810 talk about this today, after the trade deadline passed at 3:00 Central Time. He mentioned that if there was ever a time to trade McDuffie, it might have been now, because he might not be around long term. Now you have him for next year, so there's a possibility you might move him next season. But Kansas City just doesn't have a lot of wiggle room right now. And listen, I don't want to see Trent McDuffie leave. None of it. Listen, there are a lot of fan favorites on this team. Quarterback, tight end, a lot of receivers, a lot of offensive linemen, the running backs. That's just the offensive side of the football. And on the defensive side, listen, Chris Jones, Karlaftis, Pennell. People were angry Pennell was let go after the preseason. The linebackers, I think every Chiefs fan is in love with every linebacker on the team. That includes Bolton, Chenal, Tranquil. And in your secondary, obviously, I mentioned McDuffie. I know there might not be a lot of attachment from Chiefs fans for the other defensive backs on the team. But that's the state of the Chiefs right now. Yeah, there are a lot of fan favorites. But unfortunately, you cannot keep all of them. And I do think Trent McDuffie is someone who you're going to... Listen, they extended Trey Smith and George Karlaftis right before training camp. So how are you going to get Trent McDuffie when you already got those two? Because I mentioned in the offseason, of those 3 guys, you're only going to be able to keep 2 of them, maybe 1. For now, they have 2 of them. And I think there's some concern that Karlaftis might have been overpaid. Kay says, hell no, we not trade McDuffie. He's the back in any anchor. But how do you financially make it work, Kay? How do you make that work? I'm not saying I have a lot of pleasure in potentially seeing McDuffie go. No, not at all. This is just like the Tyreek Hill trade. Nobody in Kansas City want to see Tyreek Hill go. Same with L'Jarius Sneed. Same with Joe Thuney. Nobody wanted to see any of those players leave, but the Chiefs had to make difficult decisions for financial reasons. And listen, this is a great problem to have. The Chiefs did not have any of these issues 15 years ago because they just kept drafting poorly. No big name free agent wanted to come here. And any player that they paid, they weren't comfortable extending them and giving them another veteran deal because they were not worthy of that. Kansas City is in a situation now where they keep drafting very, very well. They keep bringing in good second, third tier free agents and bringing the best out of those guys. So Kansas City, yeah, Leo Chenal is another guy. I don't know. I mean, look, I don't want to see Leo Chenal put on another Chiefs jersey or another NFL jersey, excuse me. I want that guy to wear red and gold all the way to the end of his career when he hangs up the cleats. But that's just not realistic. Yeah, Matthew mentioned Justin Reed. I told you guys Justin Reed was going to be a guy that the Chiefs were going to let walk. Listen, forget about just the guys they traded. They've let a lot of guys walk over the years as well. Guys like Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Reed. You're not going to be able to keep everyone. I just feel like the position the Chiefs are in, and someone told me this on Twitter, that Brett Veach is to blame for this. That Brett Veach is the reason why the Chiefs were not able to make a move at the trade deadline. Listen, hindsight's being 2020. If Veach did not extend Trey Smith or George Karlaftis by now, especially Trey Smith, a lot of people were going to criticize Veach for it. Because those guys, I mean, Karlaftis and McDuffie are both under the 50-year option. The Chiefs gave the 50-year option to those two players, but that it just wasn't going to happen from a financial standpoint to be able to keep all three. At least I don't think it will. If they find a way to keep McDuffie, I would be shocked. It would have to require ripping up the current contracts that Mahomes and Jones have and asking them to take a smaller price tag. I don't think that's happening. So for those of you who are upset, listen, I don't expect any Chiefs fan to be thrilled with the lack of acquisitions today. No, I get it. I wanted to see the Chiefs make a move as well. I know some guys preferred defensive or offensive linemen. I think a lot of people would have taken a running back just to bring in something to help out the team. And the Chiefs didn't even get that. The Chiefs had very few options to work with. Their salary cap is already very low. And keep in mind, you still need that $3 million because if a player gets injured, you got to elevate someone from the practice squad. And then you have to fill that practice squad spot by going and signing someone off the street. So those $3 million, you can't just spend it all today for Breece Hall and say, okay, done, we're good. No, you got to have some money to work with for the remainder of the season. Joey says once all of that dead cap money comes due, Andy Reid will retire. Probably. Again, I'm not expecting you guys to be okay with the lack of acquisitions, but I think you guys need to understand, because I've had people tell me, well, there are ways around the salary cap. Okay, what's one way around it? By having players restructure. First of all, they've done that. And that has forced the Chiefs in a really horrendous spot for next year's salary cap. They're going to be cutting guys, not necessarily fan favorites. They're going to cut guys like Jawan Taylor and Mike Dana. That'll solve more than half of their salary cap in the red issues. But you still need to try to create more space so you can do something in free agency. Otherwise, this is going to be mainly just draft players who are going to be your acquisitions. Second of all, if you're going to restructure a deal elsewhere, and I don't know where else you would look. And I'm looking at Kansas City's contract right now. I mean, I suppose you would need to ask Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith to reconsider a restructure. I don't know. There are different places to look. Maybe Harrison Butker. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is just because you say we want to restructure doesn't mean you'll get the restructure. The player has to agree to it. Tyreek Hill admitted back when he was with the Chiefs, he admitted that he was approached by the Chiefs about restructuring his deal, and he said he declined it. Oh, okay. I mean, listen, I'm not saying he should be shamed for it. A contract was signed, and you have to feel the need to honor that to some extent. I get that. I get that 100%, because as great as it is to restructure deals and convert them to a bonus signing and whatnot, that does still kick the can down the road. And because the Chiefs have done that over and over again, especially with Patrick Mahomes, that's forced them to be in a really bad situation with the salary cap for 2026. Now, again, if they restructure Mahomes' deal again, I suppose, let me see if it will let me restructure the deal. Yeah, you can restructure it and free up a bunch of money for 2026 to where his cap number goes from what? 78 million to, let me fix that, 33 million. Yeah, you free up a lot of money there, but then that puts you in a bad spot in the future. Like, it'll impact future contracts. Patrick Mahomes is under contract through 2033. Keep that in mind, according to Over the Cap. He'll be 38 that at the time too. So that'll be interesting. By Butker, yeah, I don't think they're going. Well, it really just depends on how Butker does the rest of the year, I suppose. They can always do an extension and redo the deal that might be part of it. Listen, here's what I'll just say about Patrick Mahomes. And I know he's got a lot of things going in his favor with endorsements, 1587 Prime. Hopefully that, the business there does well. But listen, I think if any of you follow Patrick Mahomes on social media, he's living that A+++ lifestyle. We're talking a luxurious life. Not that it's any of our business, but I mean, listen, Brittany and Patrick, more so Brittany on social media, they have not been afraid to put out what they have on social media. I think Brittany has opened up with the number of houses and cars that they own. I think she has specifically said 3 houses and 7 cars. That was a couple of years ago. They also have bodyguards. Those are not free. They also fly privately. That is sure as hell ain't free. Those cost a pretty nickel. So is a guy like Patrick Mahomes really willing to take less when he's got a lot of luxury that he wants to have? I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. This is the spot the Chiefs are in right now. This is where they are. And listen, it's a great problem to have. But this is why I told you guys, pull off that three-peat. Because my biggest fear was a lot of players would move on. And so far, we've seen that from Justin Reed. Tershawn Wharton moved on. I mean, listen, maybe Trent McDuffie's not going to come back. Because I don't know if the Chiefs can afford him in the near future. But this is where they are right now. And look, players want to get paid. They want to get paid. I know Travis Kelce had been underpaid for a very long time. I have no problems with Travis Kelce getting, $19 million this year? Or whatever it is he's getting. Yeah, almost $20 million. Because Travis Kelce had been severely underpaid for a long time. George Kittle even called it out at one point. And I think George Kittle called it up because if Kelce got a big deal, then he could have demanded a big deal. But Kansas City just isn't in the best spot with the salary cap right now. And I think that's a big reason why, to circle this back to today's trade deadline, that's probably a big reason why they're not making the moves that they're making, that maybe you and I wanted to see happen. A 3rd-round pick for Breece Hall for just 2.5 months for a franchise's perspective is not ideal. It's just not. Listen, I would have liked for them to pull off the three-peat because with a lot of players that have moved on and potentially more moving on, I thought that would have made, it would have softened the blow a little bit for this year and next year, maybe the year after. Look, Look at New England. How did they figure it out? Well, they had Tom Brady, who was always willing to take less. That helped, but they paid their offensive linemen. A lot of their offensive linemen stayed around for a long time. They just drafted really well at all of the other positions, and that's why they succeeded and thrived for a very long time. Listen, as long as Patrick Mahomes has a good offensive line, then I think everything else will fall into place for the Chiefs during Patrick's duration here in Kansas City. What is Nick Bolton's contract? He just signed a 3-year, $45 million deal. That was this past offseason. Yeah, 3 years, $45 million. His cap number for this year is 6.5. Next year, it's 19 million. For the following 2 years, it's going to be 19.25 million. So I don't know if a guy like Nick Bolton, who's about to get, he's making a lot of money this year. Next year is going to be the biggest paycheck he'll ever get in a season. Paychecks, I should say. So I don't think that's someone who's willing to change his contract much. I'll read a few more comments and we'll be out of here. I know I was not anticipating to doing a podcast today, but because of all the reactions, I felt like there had to be something that we had to discuss today. Yeah, Jawan Jet, 100%. Jawan Taylor is moving on. Not moving on. The Chiefs are going to cut him. Even if he plays great, awesome for the rest of the year. But the Chiefs need that salary cap space. Because, and listen, I don't know if this has ever happened before, but if teams do not get under the cap, the league steps in and they start making moves. They'll just start cutting players. You don't want to ever put it in the hands of the league because you just don't know what exactly they're going to do. Yeah, but Bob, guys still wanted to get paid. I mean, look at Vince Wilfork. Didn't he leave or was it Richard Seymour? One of their defensive linemen went to the Raiders and got a big deal. And then there were, second, third tier receivers that were on other teams, like a Danny Amendola, who came to New England, did well, got at least one ring. It depends on, there are several different players that would go to New England and would be there for a little bit, would exit, go elsewhere, try to get 1 or 2 good contracts before retirement. I mean, that's just the way you saw that. Drue Tranquill is going to stay. He is on a very team-friendly contract. I think he signed like a 3-year, $10 or $11 million deal last offseason, so he's almost halfway through that deal. Next year is the last year of his deal. So I don't think Drue Tranquill is going away anywhere anytime soon. Yeah, Melinda was saying the same thing. Let's win while Pat's in his prime. That's my thing. And I don't know. Maybe you've got to blow it up a little bit and see what you can do. Like the Chris Jones signing, that unfortunately, I want Chris Jones to stay on the Chiefs. Not for that contract, though. Not for that contract. I agree, Marcus. Bolstering the trenches. That's what you've got to do. Because if you've got a good offensive line and a good defensive line, I think the entire team, like the rest of your team, will come together. If Patrick Mahomes has the pass protection he needs for the rest of his time in Kansas City, he'll be able to win with any wide receiver he's throwing the ball to. As long as they're not Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore type of players. Guys, like if your receivers are dropping passes, then yeah, it's an issue. By the way, I haven't even mentioned this guy's name yet on today's podcast. Because, and let me pull up his number just to be exact on this, because I don't want anything to be inaccurate here. But guess who else the Chiefs have to worry about in terms of contract negotiations? They've got Rashee Rice, their second round pick from 2023, who's already doing very well in 2025. This guy might want a new deal going into 2026 because we know he's got a lot of legal fees to pay. But even if he's willing to wait after 2026, which certainly would be very ideal for the Chiefs, that would be a time for the Chiefs to give Rashee Rice a big deal. And he's going to want a lot of money. He's going to want to be probably one of the highest paid receivers of all time by the time the Chiefs get to that point. So Brett Veach, in the next 18 to 24 months, he's got a lot of shit to figure out. It's not going to be easy. Listen, I'll give Brett Veach credit. Do you guys remember the Chiefs at one point had $177 in cap space? Literally 3 digits. $177, not $177,000. $177, less than $200. I mean, there are Chiefs tickets that cost more than $177. There are Comic-Con tickets that cost more than that. And Brett Veach got the Chiefs out of that hole. So if there's anyone that's capable of helping the Chiefs navigate around the salary cap in the future, Brett Veach is certainly one of the guys to do that. But for right now, the Chiefs couldn't do much because they don't have a lot of room with the cap at the moment. Giving up a 3rd round pick, a day 2 draft pick for a rental is not ideal in Brett Veach's mind, probably. Jordan says, I made this comment on cap space because if you get rid of cap space, it's going to be unfair for payroll, like how baseball players are paid. Yes. And listen, I don't follow baseball very closely. I do know baseball. Their payroll is much different. There is no limit in that sports there. So spend as much as you can, right? That's how that works. And that's why the bigger markets benefit the most. Yeah, Rice is going to get paid 100%. They didn't give it to Tyreek, so I don't think they're going to give it to Rashee. Well, I got to push back a little bit. They did give Tyreek Hill a deal of some sort. If you remember when Tyreek Hill was going through the child abuse allegations, and once his name was clear of any wrongdoing, the Chiefs gave him a big deal. I think it was a 3-year, $54 million deal. I don't have it in front of me. Let me see if I can pull that up. Tyreek Hill signed, and then just cite the year 2019. This is how you do research, people. Oh, I got the exact number. 3 years, $54 million. Imagine that. That memory bank works real well sometimes. So on September the 6th, the Chiefs gave him a 3-year deal worth $54 million. Now, the second deal, that one that you're referring to, Julian, no, they were not willing to give him that deal. And that was when the Chiefs were in a very crazy. If the Chiefs paid Tyreek Hill, if they were willing to give him what he asked for, you would not have kept Chris Jones at the time. You probably would not have been able to retain some of your other players, like Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith. And obviously, you would not have Trent McDuffie by now. So those are the moves that you've got to make sometimes. Listen, look at the opposite side of it. Look at the Miami Dolphins. They thought that they were one big playmaker away at the wide receiver position from becoming serious contenders. And what did they do? They gave up the whole store for Tyreek Hill. And look what happened. Not a single playoff win since you acquired him. Tua has not been available the entire time since acquiring Tyreek Hill. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. And unfortunately, this is the worst year they've had. Tyreek Hill being hurt, even before his injury, it was a bad season. And now the rumor is they want to get rid of Tyreek Hill. I still remember at the time, Brett Veach was crucified by everybody, including people in Kansas City, thinking this was I don't want to call it a dynasty because at the time it wasn't a dynasty, but a lot of people thought the Chiefs were basically not going to be as good as they had looked in years past with Patrick Mahomes. Well, what do you know? They won 2 Super Bowls, almost a third without Tyreek Hill. They've been to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row without. My point is this. Yes, some decisions in the moment might not look good. It's going to look very bleak, in fact. And the Tyreek Hill trade is a great example of that. But there are reasons why Brett Veach makes the decisions he makes. Do we agree with all of them? Hell no. sure as hell do not agree with bringing back Derek Nottie. Now, not that Derek Nottie created a big bind for your salary cap, but that still was not ideal when you probably had better avenues to improve your defensive tackle position. But at the end of the day, you still have to live and die by the decisions you make. You can't go back and have any of these regrets. Are the Chiefs going to regret not making a move today? I don't know. And I don't think the Chiefs are going to have that mindset. They're going to move forward with the guys they have. And if someone comes up in free agency, will Kansas City consider it? Absolutely, they will. But for now, this is the team they have moving forward. I'll read a few more comments and get out of here. Do I think Indianapolis called about Trent McDuffie? That's a really good question. I never even thought of that. Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. Probably. He would have been cheaper to acquire. I guess they were willing to give the Jets those 2 1s because he was already under a long-term deal. Whereas with McDuffie, I don't think they would have been willing to give 2 1s. Chris says Veach needs to get fired. Oh, come on. Let's not go there. Look, it's a lot like KU fans. They were frustrated because of the blowout loss to K-State. I heard a lot of KU fans say, let's fire Lance Leipold. Really? You want to fire the guy that dug you out of the basement of the Big 12? And I know KU's not doing hot right now, but they're not horrendous like they have been in years past. Same thing with Brett Veach. The Chiefs were in a terrible situation with the salary cap. They overpaid for guys like Eric Berry and Justin Houston. And listen, I know injuries occur, but those still get held against you when you pay a player and they're not available suddenly. And I think one big criticism of John Dorsey was that he waited too long to extend Justin Houston and Eric Berry. That's another thing to be aware of there with the Dorsey firing. But listen, Veach has put the Chiefs in a really good position. Emmeline says the Chris Jones salary needs to be revisited. I agree. No one's disagreeing with that one, Emmeline. But again, you can, like, you're Brett Veach. You go up to Chris Jones and say, hey, Chris, we love you, but we don't think you're worth the contract that you're getting. Chris Jones can give you 2 middle fingers and say, too bad, this is the contract we agreed, I ain't restructuring. Just because a player's not living up to the standard or the expectation doesn't mean they'll accept a brand new deal. That's just something to consider here. Matthew says making the playoffs is going to be real hard. Listen, I don't know. I think the Chiefs will be fine. Now, in terms of winning the division, if you don't beat Denver, I think the division lead does evaporate. And I think it's going to heavily, you will see on DraftKings, it will heavily go in favor of the Broncos. Besides the rookie left tackle, what is the contract situation with the other tackles? Jalen Moore signed a 2-year deal worth $30 million. I don't know how many years for each year. Jawan Taylor's got a big contract they can get out of that this upcoming offseason. Those are the only offensive tackles I can think. I know Wanye Morris is on a rookie deal. He was drafted in the 3rd round, so he's not eating too much of your cap space. Bob Esapole is on the practice squad, so he's not making much money either. But those are your offensive tackles right now. The only saving grace is that the Bills didn't make any moves either. That is true, Joshua. That is true indeed. Demetrio says, Nottie is so freaking good. I'm thrilled Nottie is back on the team. LOL SMH. I'm glad you put the LOL SMH in there because I could still detect the sarcasm before that. I agree, Joey. Omar Norman Lott. I was excited for Omar Norman Lott. He had the #1 pass rush win rate of any college football defensive tackle last year. Unfortunately, he had a lot of injuries this year in the preseason and another one that came up during the season. He tore his ACL in that Raiders game. So, unfortunately, you get some bad luck sometimes. Overpaid for Dwayne Bowe, yeah. If I recall correctly, Dwayne Bowe signed a 5-year deal, and he only stuck around for 2 of those years. Let me... Now, keep in mind, John Dorsey was a GM at the time. His deal was $56 million over 5 years. Oof. Boy, if you can get a wide receiver for $56 million in 5 years, that is a steal. Boy, the NFL's changed a lot over the last 10 to 12 years. Okay, so I'm reading an old article from Adam Teicher almost 10 years ago, December of 2015. Here's the first paragraph. The worst player personnel move made by the Kansas City Chiefs in almost 3 years under GM John Dorsey and coach Andy Reid was to sign veteran wide receiver Dwayne Bowe to a lucrative long-term contract in early 2013. Boy, we've come a long way since then, folks. I remember when Matt Castle got a 6-year, $63 million deal. If you can get a quarterback to that kind of contract today, you basically committed robbery on a Chiefsaholic level. I think 11-6 is more realistic, Joshua. I agree, Bob. I think we gotta be open to the realistic possibility of a wild card spot for sure. Veach is better than 30 other GMs. I agree. I mean, listen, Veach has never sat on his ass. He's always done things. I will say this. I think Brett Veach's worst move is not a contract that was signed. I think his worst move was offering Orlando Brown a 6-year deal. And thank God Orlando Brown declined it, because he has been awful in Kansas City and in Cincinnati. And Cincinnati fans thought they stole him from Kansas City. Trade a third and CEH for Brian. Well, I don't think you can trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he's on the practice squad. He played this week because he was up by standard elevation. Why is Mitchell on the team? Elijah Mitchell and Christian Fulton. Those were 2 acquisitions the Chiefs made in the offseason through free agency. And yeah, we have not seen him. Like, the fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire got the nod before Elijah Mitchell, that was telling to me. And listen, let me just say this about the running back position, because I do agree. I think the Chiefs need to consider a running back in the first round of the draft. I know Chiefs fans get scared of that because the last time the Chiefs got a running back in the first round, it did not work out. But look who you have. You have Isaiah Pacheco, who's on the last year of his rookie deal. Kareem Hunt's on a 1-year deal. Mitchell is on a 1-year deal. Brashard Smith is a rookie who you just drafted, so he'll be back next season, more likely than not. But you're going to have to get some running backs next year, unless you re-sign one of those 3 guys I mentioned, Mitchell, Pacheco, or Hunt. Castle was horrified experience. Yeah, with the exception of 2010. Listen, for those of you who've been listening to me a long, long time, which is probably very few of you, 2010 was a special year for me personally, because that was my first year of doing a Chiefs podcast that got to talk about a team going to the playoffs. We started the podcast in 2007. Listen, we've done podcasts on a lot of bad seasons in Kansas City over the years. Joe Burrow would not be considered a top 5 quarterback if he never beat Patrick Mahomes in a fluke playoff game. Sure. I don't know what that has to do with contract situations. I guess you're saying he got a big contract because of that? I'm not sure. Raymond says Nagy needs to get cut. Yeah, if only coaches cutting coaches, if that would only help your salary cap. Listen, I agree, Donnie. I still think Dwayne Bowe could have done better if he didn't commit so many drops, because that was a thing with Dwayne Bowe. They don't remember the old Elvis Grbac. Yeah. Oh boy. Listen, I was not a fan back then. But yeah, wasn't Burrow can't stay healthy. Yeah, I agree. I mean, not to get too off topic, but I think that's a team that does need to consider a viable backup option, because as great as Burrow is, and he's had more success than a lot of quarterbacks right now, especially those who get drafted in the first round. Look at even some of the recent first-round QBs like CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, whether it's injuries or inconsistent play. Joe Burrow is still one of the very few good QBs in the first round, and this is a guy that's had a lot of unavailability. But for now, I don't think that's something the Bengals are bragging about. All right. We're starting to get way out of bounds here, and I think we're going longer than I anticipated for tonight's podcast. But listen, I think you guys get the idea. To just kind of wrap up here. And I know the game. Listen, I'll end on this note. If the Chiefs beat the Bills, there would be a whole different narrative on the Chiefs not making a move at the trade deadline. So it's always, I guarantee you, if the Chiefs go into Denver and win, I don't care if it's by 1 point, 10 points, 100 points. If the Chiefs beat the Broncos in Denver, I guarantee you, all the chatter we have tonight on Brett Veach, no one's going to have any of that in 12 days. Now, if the Chiefs lose, there's going to be hey, Brett Veach coulda, woulda, shoulda done this. Listen, winning cures a lot of things. We talked about this the other day. During the 0-2 start, there were a lot of narratives on this football team. And since then, a lot of those narratives don't really exist anymore. Yes, this week, there's been some talk on the Kansas City Chiefs, given that it's November and they're out of the playoff picture for now. But for the time being, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Travis Kelce, you had a banged up offensive line, but guess what? Josh Simmons is back. Jalen Moore might go from left to right. Trey Smith has an extra week to get better with his back injury. I know Kingsley Suamataia came back into the game, but he had an ankle injury. And you never know if the swelling ever comes up the next day or whatnot. But he's got an extra week to feel better. The defense, they're coming off they're also going to be taking part in this bye, obviously. So they're going to have a much needed break. But I think coming off a bye, if the Chiefs can go win in Denver and beat Indianapolis at home, I think all the discussions we're having today are going to, like Thanos, he'll snap his fingers and this discussion is going to go away like it never existed. Winning cures a lot of things. So let's see if the Chiefs win in 12 days when they play the Broncos. Hey, there will not be a podcast tomorrow unless there's any kind of breaking news that comes up. No Red Friday Q&A live chat this Red Friday. I'm going to also go on a bye week. That is much needed given how insanely busy this football season has been for me. So not going to have any more live streams the rest of the week. We'll still have video content, reels, YouTube videos. We'll still have that. So be on the lookout for all of that this week on YouTube and on the rest of the social media accounts. But until then, there will not be a live stream or a podcast of any kind, provided there's no breaking news, until next Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time. I'll talk to you guys then. I'm Farzin Vousoughian. Appreciate you guys joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. If you joined in late, it'll be archived shortly on Facebook, YouTube, X, Apple, Spotify, all those places where you can check out your podcasts. And also, for those of you who enjoyed this, please give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and share this. Let your friends know about the Chiefs Zone Podcast. Once again, I'm Farzin Vousoughian. I will talk to you all next Monday. Take care. Enjoy the bye week.